Good morning, Fumblegate fans. Welcome to the Fumblegate on YouTube. I'm Jason Griefer. That's former Cincinnati Bengal Adam Kieft. Twitter handles at the bottom of your screen so that you can keep in touch with us on social media. Also, Facebook.com/Fumblegate. You can see right up behind us there. Check us out on there. Give us a like. And while you're here watching on YouTube, hit that little subscribe button. Hit the little bell notification. That way you're told immediately when we're live going forward. That way...
Like right now, my phone just told me we went live.
There you go. We make it nice and convenient for you folks out there as best we can. Okay, so we wanted to come back today and kind of wrap up what happened last night in the NFL draft. Everything just sort of started off kind of hunky-dory. Yeah, no big surprises at the top, at least the top three picks, and then things sort of started to come off the rails with the Oakland Raiders, as you might expect, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But first, we got to start. We got to start right at the top, and as projected, right here on Fumblegate,
accurately predicted as always.
That's right. Kyler Murray does indeed go number 1 overall to the Cardinals, and wearing a ridiculous, like, salmon-colored suit.
There were some bad choices.
Some of them were pretty terrible.
Bad choices in fashion.
You're right. Yeah, some of those were pretty terrible. Murray's was a bold choice. Let's go with that. So now it's official. He's a member of the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And so now they have a decision. What can they do with Josh Rosen? What can they get for Josh Rosen? I think with the way some of the things shook out here, the price actually may have gone down for him as far as what they're going to get.
Oh, I think what they're going to get went way down, especially if you look at the other teams that had a quarterback need got theirs in the first round.
Yeah.
Now from here on out, it's kind of more of a quarterback want. If you want another quarterback, the three teams that needed a starting quarterback took one. Now it's kind of if you want Josh Rosen to be, whether it's a project or a backup, if you want him on your roster now it's a lot less of an asking price. No one needs him to be their starter, so it's now what can you get for him? And they better be shopping him right now. They have to be. You've committed to Kyler Murray. You didn't pick the number 1 overall pick to sit behind the guy you picked last year. So you have to get some value out of him, and you found this right before we went on the air. What they did last year to get Josh Rosen, this is what's going to make it astonishing. To get Josh Rosen last year, they gave up their first, third, and fifth round pick to get Josh Rosen last year at number 10. By the way, they were also paying Sam Bradford $16 million last year, Mike Glennon $5 million, both of which are now gone. So they spent $21 million on 2 quarterbacks that are now gone and traded their first, third, and fifth round draft pick for a quarterback they're probably going to have to trade away as soon as possible. At this point, for what looks like probably a third round pick at best.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a third and a sixth, or you get a fourth and a seventh, or something like that in there.
Probably those would be conditional.
Those would be conditional picks based on if you make the playoffs or not, or whatever.
Yeah.
Not a good look for Arizona. And I said it yesterday that the Cliff Kingsbury was going to have to do a lot through this draft. As far as the pressure he's going to be under, and the pressure just got amplified because you took a quarterback number 1 overall a year after your franchise took a quarterback at 10 overall. Now you really have to put a product on the field that shows that you made the right decision. And if you're not protecting Kyler Murray, none of this is going to matter. The question we're posing is, what's the realistic expectation for Kyler Murray next year?
What is it?
At this point, I think it's don't die. Like, just try to keep your head inside your helmet at this point, because they don't have a very good offensive line. They really don't have a lot of weapons around him. I love Larry Fitzgerald, future Hall of Famer. David Johnson's coming off an injury, but he's supposedly going to be healthy. But other than that, we know their offensive line wasn't very good. And we know Larry Fitzgerald, their best receiver, is now 38 years old. So what is the realistic expectation? At this point, it's kind of get through the season healthy. Now, I will say this. They do have the number 1 pick today. I think it has to be an offensive weapon. And the good news for them is there was not a lot of skill players that were chosen yesterday.
They've got a lot of options.
There's a lot of skill players available. And I think with the number 1 pick today, you have to go receiver to give Kyler Murray a downfield threat. Because we know Larry Fitzgerald is no longer the downfield threat, particularly outside of the 40-yard line. You're not getting him to the end zone by beating anybody. Inside the 20, he's still got the ability to go up and make a catch.
He's a slot guy.
But, you need somebody that's going to stretch the field. And the good news for them is there's a lot of receivers available that can do that. There's a lot of guys who ran sub 4.5, sub 4.4 40s that are still on the board. And I think that's where they have to go with the first pick today.
Well, you do have Christian Kirk, who I loved coming out of Texas A&M, and I think last year you didn't really get to see the full skill set of Kirk because Arizona had no idea what they were doing at quarterback, as we talked about paying Sam Bradford and Mike Glenn $21 million combined, and then they wound up going with Josh Rosen anyway, despite that fact, because both Sam Bradford and Mike Glennon stink. So Kirk didn't really get a chance, I think, to show his full skill set, but you still need him to take a step forward now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about Larry Fitzgerald still being there. Again, how much productivity, how many snaps is he really going to play? We don't know because, he's getting up there, and this what will likely be the final season of his Hall of Fame career coming up in the fall. I think, realistically, I don't be surprised, folks, for all you fantasy football fans out there, if Kyler Murray leads the Arizona Cardinals in rushing touchdowns, because he is so good of an athlete, and like Adam said, their offensive line is garbage. Now, I know they went and traded for Marcus Gilbert, the former Steelers right tackle, but they only gave up a 6th-round pick for him.
Which
so it shows
could be a good trade.
But it shows you right there that if he was a better offensive lineman,
he'd be worth more.
You're gonna have to give up that.
Yep.
You signed J.R. Sweezy, who is past his prime from his glory days in Seattle, and so you still need a lot of help. And I wouldn't be surprised if they look offensive line at the beginning of this.
Which also quite a few good ones available.
There are.
They're in a very enviable position because they do have the number 1 pick in this round. They've had the whole night to think about it, and it really did kind of play into their hand where, as we mentioned, this was a defensive-heavy draft, and the first round indicated that only 3 offensive skill players came off the board, and really, truly, only 4, I think it was 4 offensive tackles came off the board. And there's 3 really good ones still available. So it's going to be interesting to see if they go protection or if they go weapon. But this pick has to be something to help their offense, continue to shore up that offense, keep Kyler Murray healthy, because we know he's going to take a beating in the NFL, especially at 5'10". He cannot get hit all the time. If you want him to remain healthy, a 340-pound defensive tackle can't be sacking him constantly. So he's going to have to stay clean. They have to do something to surround him to keep him from running from his life.
Well, I think what you can also do, too, is make the decisions easier for him. And what I mean by that is utilize David Johnson, not only handing the ball off, but also in the screen game. Yeah. Have him line up in the slot, the quick throws, the RPO stuff, or if you have a design run, he sees a pass, he sees a guy open off the line, go ahead and chuck it out there to him. Make the quick and easy throws and take some of the risk out from underneath of Kyler Murray, and so that you can protect him, because obviously with this pick, Cliff Kingsbury has tied his NFL career to Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and we mentioned it yesterday. Cliff Kingsbury is probably going to have 2 seasons to get this in the right direction. Now, what does that mean? It means probably being close to 500 within 2 years.
Yeah.
If he's 4-12 this year and they make it to 7-9 next year, I think he gets the 3rd year. But if he goes 3-13 and 4-12, I think he's done. We mentioned it. He's kind of an unproven college coach, and now we're giving him an opportunity to lead the NFL franchise. It's the Sean McVay effect. They're trying to catch lightning in a bottle with a young and up-and-coming coach, and you're hoping to have the success that Sean McVay has out there in LA. And I don't see it with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think is going to be on a very short leash, and he's hitched his wagon to Kyler Murray. And if Kyler Murray sucks, they're going to suck, and he's going to be out of a job. So it's going to be really interesting to see where this thing goes. The offense is going to have to be predicated on getting the ball out of Kyler Murray's hand quickly. They're going to have to give him easy things to do to begin. There is a learning curve when it comes to the NFL. The speed of the game is different, and I've said this before. People ask me, what's the biggest difference? Not necessarily the athletes, but the speed at which you have to learn the game. Whether it's on the field or in the classroom, you have to learn so much faster because there's such a condensed amount of time for you to make decisions in practice, in games, on the field, and live play, that it's going to be a lot different than it was at Oklahoma for Kyler Murray. He's going to have to be a lot better student of the game to learn the intricacies of an NFL offense to be successful. So it's really going to be interesting to see where this goes. And I said it yesterday, this was the riskiest pick in the draft because of his size and because of you banking your franchise on picking a franchise quarterback for the second year in a row.
Yeah.
This is the riskiest pick in the draft because this could have huge repercussions for that entire franchise because of what you gave up last year to get Rosen, and now you're going to trade him away. And now you've got all your chips in one basket with Kyler Murray, and you don't have a lot of other pieces that you need around him to be successful. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, if this doesn't work out, as you said, I think we saw the Arizona's ownership. You know, they're willing to pull the trigger quick. Ask Steve Wilkes; he got 1 year there, and was canned after he took over for Bruce Arians. Of course, I think a lot of people thought that was a bad hire to begin with. Granted, they also didn't do him any favors by sticking him with Sam Bradford and Mike Glennon.
Yeah, the general manager.
He was set up for failure.
The personnel decisions they made, obviously now you look at their quarterback room and the way that it has entirely changed over within 1 year and the amount of money they spent on the quarterbacks last year.
Yeah,
they didn't do them any favors with personnel. But if this is their personnel decision, you just made a huge bet on one dude who a lot of people have questions about, and it stems from his size. It stems from his subpar Wonderlic score. Can he do the things that need to be done to be successful in the NFL? It's going to be interesting.
Because if he doesn't, then you're hoping and praying you have the #1 pick in 2 years when Trevor Lawrence leaves Clemson.
Yeah, that's the other thing about this draft.
And you're starting over.
That's the other thing about this draft I don't think any of these quarterbacks are really like knocking out of the ballpark quarterbacks.
No,
there's no Andrew Luck in this draft. No. There's no Peyton Manning.
No.
There's no franchise quarterback waiting there for you.
It's a solid group.
It's a solid draft class.
It's not a top.
It's not day one winners. No. It's not. I mean, none of these guys you can predict. 5 years from now that they're going to be Pro Bowlers. It really isn't that level of quarterback class. And like you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence in a couple of years seems to be shaping up to be a surefire #1 pick that is going to be a similar can't miss prospect to a guy like Andrew Luck. And so. It's interesting. I said the whole draft was going to be predicated on what happened at #1. And from there, it kind of shook out the way we expected it. Now, and you get to the later picks, and there were some changes with trades and so on. But that top 10 was predicated a lot on Kyler Murray, and it kind of went the way we predicted after that.
You're right, because we're both on the mark with the second and third picks, Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams to San Francisco and the Jets, respectively.
I will say Quinnen Williams, and the more I read about it, it's kind of an interesting pick that they didn't take Josh Allen, just because they're a 3-4 defense, and Quinnen Williams is a 3 technique, which they don't play in a 3-4 defense. So it's going to be interesting to see if they have him play a head-up 4 or if they try and put him at nose tackle, see if he can 2-gap. But, I think he's a can't-miss prospect. I think he's a day one starter, and he's got a chance to be a Pro Bowler as a rookie, that he's that talented.
He's the type of guy you can make it work in a
he's just a little out of position, but you can't pass on a talent that's good.
But Greg Williams has shown to be a terrific defensive coordinator.
Yeah, 100%. And they're going to find a way to put him in the correct position. It was just, being a 3 technique in college, and now they play a 0 and a 4, for those you don't know, a head up on the center, a head up on the tackles.
Whether he's
where do they put him in their scheme? But
yeah,
he's a talent kid. He's going to do whatever it needs to do.
Whether Greg Williams is paying players to injure people or not.
Yeah, whether we got Bounty Gate or not.
Okay, so Bosa and Williams came off the board as expected, and then here come the Oakland Raiders, and
it screwed up our perfect predictions too, which is what's kind of frustrating.
There were options there. Adam had the Raiders going with Josh Allen. I had the Raiders going with Ed Oliver, and then they just don't. And they go
either.
And then they go with
they go with either.
No, they go with Cleveland Ferrell, the defensive end from Clemson. And by the way, Clemson with 3 defensive linemen drafted in the first round. That's the first time that's happened.
The Power Rangers, by the way. Did you see that little clip?
That is great.
That is awesome. For those of you who don't know, they dressed up as the Power Rangers for Halloween. And they had the full-on suits, and they
were very form-fitting suits.
Yeah,
too.
very form-fitting. they were very revealing. But
here you go. Cleveland Ferrell, he was fine as a prospect at Clemson, but
he's a first-round talent. There's no question. He was going to get drafted in the first round.
He is the bottom of the first round talent, bottom half.
For a team that has 3 picks in the first round of the draft,
and
the 24th and 27th pick. You could have got him there easily.
We were just talking before we came on the air. You had felt that basically Josh Allen was your direct replacement for Khalil Mack with what their scheme is and what they want to do.
With what you do, you traded away Khalil Mack, the defensive MVP of the league. He had almost more sacks than your entire team by himself.
And he missed 2 games.
By the way, 7 players in the NFL did have more sacks than the Raiders did last year. They had 13 as a team.
So you understand why they went.
No,
with
they
Farrell
needed an edge rusher, 100%. But how is it not Josh Allen? How is it not Josh Allen? Well, it blows my mind. If that's your thought process, you want an edge rusher. How is Josh Allen not the guy you choose?
And you look at the rest of the way that stuff went. The rest of the round, there were only 2 other defensive ends taken between this pick and the Raiders' second pick at 24, Rashawn Gary at 12, and Brian Burns at 16. So you still had a shot to possibly get your guy
100%.
in Farrell at 24.
You would have had him at 24. There's no question they would have had him at 24.
You could have had Allen and Farrell.
As we're going to finish the rest of this round, the only reason Josh Allen came off the board at 7 was because he was there.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have come off the board at 7. No. If he wasn't there, Jacksonville would have been offensive line.
Yep.
They had to go offensive line if he wasn't there. But Josh Allen making it to 7, you can't pass on him. Nope. You can't pass on Josh Allen at 7, especially with as good as their defense is, and you just got an instant upgrade, which says a lot for Josh Allen because they need so much help offensively that they went and took a defensive player. Now, granted, he's the best player on the board at 7. There's no question about that. But that's how good that kid is, that a team that needs offense all over the board passed on an offensive player to get Josh Allen because the Raiders screwed up number 4 so badly.
Well, unless you were listening to Booger McFarland on the ESPN
Booger's
draft.
Idiot. God, they need to fire that guy.
Who said, I can't wait to see what Josh Allen does when he gets some decent coaching.
Oh my
because
God.
We're going to ignore the fact that Josh Allen was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school. It's on his freaking Twitter bio that he was a former 2-star recruit. And Mark Stoops took that in 3 years and turned it into the 7th pick of the draft.
And you look at,
but he needs coaching.
He would have if he would have come out last year, he would have got drafted. But he went back. He got another year of coaching from his terrible college coaching, apparently.
Yeah.
And becomes the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, wins every defensive end award out there. He's got a trophy case full of shit. But Booger McFarland thinks that he didn't get enough coaching there?
Sorry he didn't go to your precious LSU, Booger.
He's obviously he's naturally gifted person, but you can't tell me he didn't get any coaching. Like he wasn't just a fly by the seat of your pants player.
GTFOH, Booger. GTFOH.
God. Booger, go get some coaching on how to be an analyst and get the hell out of the booth, you bum.
Go sit in the Booger mobile on the sidelines.
I'm so sick of that guy on Monday Night Football.
GTFOH. Go look it up, kids.
He's the freaking worst.
But anyway, back to the Raiders here. You look at. I actually like what the Raiders did at 24 with Josh Jacobs because you need a bell cow running back to replace Marshawn.
That was a great pick.
The pick at 4 for a guy in Farrell and Cleveland Ferrell who has a chance to be good. But it's going to take more time. Whereas a guy like Josh Allen, seemingly it's plug and play, and he's going to be, a guy who's probably going to be all rookie team.
Yeah, it's
straight away.
It's so confusing, and especially because you look at Cleveland Farrell and the system that he was in, and not take anything away from UK's defensive line. Clemson is going to get 5 guys drafted, 3 of them in the first round already. 5 guys in that defensive line are going to get drafted.
He had other guys setting things up for him.
What does Oakland have around him that's going to make it easier for Cleveland Farrell to get sacks? I don't think he's naturally gifted enough to get to the edge. Like, he did have 13.5 sacks. That's fine. But
how much
look at all the other guys around him who were taking pressure off of him. He wasn't getting double-teamed in college because you couldn't double-team Clemson's defensive line. They were bringing guys off the bench that are going to get drafted today in the NFL draft. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, not to take anything away from UK, but UK doesn't have any other defensive linemen getting drafted in this draft, do they?
No, they do not.
No, they do not. And look at what Josh Allen did when he was constantly getting double-teamed in the SEC and ends up as the SEC Defensive Player of the Year anyway. It blows my mind. And you thought, like, the Raiders, they gave up everything they gave. They gave up Amari Cooper. They gave up Khalil Mack. They get all these picks this year. John Gruden, $100 million coach, is going to do something with them. And then his very first pick in this draft, the head scratcher. It is so confusing.
You don't reach for a guy. You don't reach for a defensive end that much. You know,
that's going to be there when you have another pick.
Some people had Farrell as high as maybe 15. To Washington, and that was it. Nobody had him higher than 15. You don't reach that high for a defensive end.
Most teams probably didn't have him inside their top 20.
What you do reach for in the first round, a lot of teams do, you reach for a quarterback, and that's what the New York Giants have done. They went ahead and got their guy, as you called it.
As predicted correctly here, which this is what makes me mad, because I would have been 6 for 6 if the Raiders didn't Raider up the draft.
Yeah,
I would have been 6 for 6 for the first 6, but the Raiders went and screwed up my perfect streak.
Well, they went and took the Dookie, Daniel Jones, and here's what the New York Post thinks about it. Here's their front page of the New York Post today. This came out last night, and you're taking a look at it right now, and there you go.
I love the pick. I think it's a great pick because I think you have to start thinking for the future.
You could have got him at 17.
You probably could have got him at 17. I agree, but you've made your decision. Eli is no longer the guy. Now it is #Eli's fault.
Eli's going to be the guy for at least another year or two because Daniel Jones is going to need time to sit.
That's true, but his contract is up after this year, so this is your transition year. You get Eli starting. You teach Daniel Jones the game of the NFL. And then it's time to go. It is a little bit of a reach, but you needed to get a quarterback. You needed to get him in this draft because unlike New England, who has no succession plan for Tom Brady, the Giants at least are having the forethought I know. Tom Brady might play till he's 50 at this point, but they have a succession plan in place for Eli Manning. Again, I don't think Eli has ever been an elite talent. I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback because he has 2 Super Bowl rings. That is the only reason he has 2 Super Bowl rings.
I said it a couple of weeks ago when I did the solo video. He will be, along with Joe Namath, the 2 worst quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame.
Joe Namath shouldn't even be in the Hall of Fame. The only reason he's in the Hall of Fame is because he made the prediction. If he didn't make the prediction, he's a below 500. For all of you who don't know, Joe Namath is a below 500 starting quarterback in the NFL.
He shot his mouth off and he played in New York.
Yep. He played in New York, and he predicted 1 Super Bowl win, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. Eli Manning, same reason. He plays in New York. He has 2 Super Bowl rings. He's going to the Hall of Fame, despite being a marginal quarterback. He is a very marginal quarterback. Eli Manning is not a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. He hasn't been probably his entire career, save 1 or 2 seasons.
And yet, Dave Gettleman, with this pick, Daniel Jones is the only guy you could have drafted that is not going to leave Giants fans clamoring for him.
Yeah,
he has spared Eli Manning's feelings with this pick.
Yeah,
because he didn't want to get Daddy on the phone.
I saw one. It was a really good one this morning. It said Daniel Jones looks like the actor who would play Eli Manning in a story about Peyton Manning's life.
Yes,
and I was like, that is totally accurate. Like there couldn't be a more blah, mundane-looking quarterback than Eli, and now you add another basic white guy to your quarterback room, and that's what Daniel Jones is.
You look at Daniel Jones, and you know he's a big kid. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He can get it down the field when in a pinch, but it's not consistently a big arm. He only completed 59% of his passes at Duke.
Well, let's not pretend like Duke is a football powerhouse.
They
play in the ACC, which is a pretty decent league.
Correct, but he didn't exactly light it up. I mean, because there are some 100% bottom feeder teams.
Well, yeah,
in that league,
I agree.
His last home game, they lost to Wake Forest 59-7.
Yeah, well, Wake Forest.
No.
Okay.
Nope, you can't.
I'm done making excuses.
You can't do it.
No, it's
so with that, you have him, and then Washington gets the gift of all gifts. At least in their minds.
And we talked about them having to trade up to get Dwayne Haskins.
I had them at 5 getting Dwayne Haskins, so I got the team right.
They didn't have to go anywhere to
They didn't have to move.
They just sat and let him come to them.
And they got their guy.
Saved themselves some money and some draft picks.
Dwayne Haskins should be the starter week 1. I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to be shocked if he's not.
Who are they going to start?
Because you have Case Keenum and you have Colt McCoy.
We know Case Keenum's not bad, but Colt McCoy is not the starter. If Colt McCoy is starting week 1 for
I know, but
the Washington Redskins, you might as well just cash it in.
I agree, but they like him.
They do like him.
He's been there for a few years.
He's been there for a while. But yeah, Dwayne, this pick fell to them, and it was a great pick for them. I like how he's got a chip on his shoulder to start. He said the league done messed up by letting him fall to 15, but I think
you're right. I think he's got 10 years ahead of him.
I want to say he does, but it's something about I don't know. I don't see it just yet. We talked about it yesterday. He's got a bunch of Big Ten records, but it just something about it makes me nervous. I don't know what it is. Just something about Dwayne Haskins makes me a little nervous. I don't know what it's going to be, but. If he doesn't succeed, it won't surprise me. Yeah. Now, I hope he does. I don't ever want a kid to fail. I've been in the position, obviously at a lot different draft position.
You know how hard it is to make it in the season.
Yes, and I don't want the kid to fail. It just wouldn't surprise me if he does. It just for some reason. And we know Dan Snyder's an idiot as an owner. Well, yeah. So there's a lot of ways to screw up this kid's career that may be out of his control. Like, it might not even be within his control. Something about it just makes me feel like it's not going to work. I hope I'm wrong.
I would be a lot more okay with what the Giants did had they selected Daniel Jones at 17, because you're the 6th pick. You are flat out saying he is our franchise guy, but you're also with the way you set up leading yourselves into the draft, you're also telling Giants fans that with the 6th pick in the draft, he's going to sit for at least a year. Which isn't unprecedented. It's happened before. You look at what happened here in Cincinnati with Carson Palmer. But we talked about unprecedented. But we talked about in this age now.
Yeah,
we're an instant gratification society. People don't want
the pressure in New York is a lot different.
That's part of it too.
That is part of it.
You don't want the 6th pick in the draft sitting for a year.
It happened here in Cincinnati with Carson Palmer.
But that was 16 years ago.
And it's a small market team.
Right.
So you don't have the scope of national media breathing down your neck, particularly if you are struggling.
And the thing is,
if the Giants are struggling,
they will.
You're going to, and they are. If you're going to stick with Eli Manning, there's going to be a lot of clamoring around the entire country because of being the Giants and Eli Manning being a very famous quarterback.
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of clamoring with where's Daniel Jones. So it's
going to happen when Eli throws 3 interceptions on opening day.
Yeah,
you're gonna have the New York Post come back with another headline saying, put Daniel Jones. They'll come up with some clever headline because they're great at it. But where's Jones?
You're right.
Jonesing for Daniel.
Yeah. And as you look at the way the rest of the round before 17 played out, they could have easily gotten him at 17. But he's obviously the number 1 quarterback on their board. He's there at 6. And they got a good player at 17. It's not like they
Dexter Lawrence is a good player when he's not cheating and taking PEDs.
Well, to be fair, like I don't think that's not gonna fall in the NFL anyway. I think that's something that
No,
I would rather it be a PED issue than some kind of personal issue. For what
that's not a personal issue.
No, you know what I mean. But for what I'd rather
conduct issue,
domestic violence, or something like that.
I got you.
I'd rather it be something a drug related offense. I'd rather he smokes a bunch of weed than ends up getting in a bar fight. You know what I mean? So they got a good pick at 17. But yeah, I mean. Not knowing how the rest of that round is going to play out, it makes sense. But, you don't know if Denver behind you is going to take a quarterback. The talk of Dwayne Haskins going to Cincinnati was there. Like
Miami,
there's a lot of what ifs. And this is part of the fun of the NFL draft is there's a lot of what ifs of how the rounds are going to shake out. And he was the number one guy on their board, and he was there at 6, and they took him. And, it's going to be questioned, just like the pick in Arizona. It's going to be questioned until Daniel Jones proves that he can be a good NFL quarterback. It's going to be questioned. But I think it was the right pick at the time, not knowing what was going to happen behind them. But, yeah, knowing what we know now, 17, he would have been there, and that would have been the pick.
Well,
but
it's like you said, you have 1 year left of Eli. And then 2020, Daniel Jones has to be ready.
Yeah, he has to be.
And if he's not, the New York market will swallow him whole. And unless he finds his inner Kurt Warner and goes somewhere else and makes something of himself, then you've wasted the 6th pick of the draft, and you're rebuilding again, and you're wasting the early career.
Well, that's
of
on the
Saquon
coaching
Barkley.
staff, and that's also on Eli Manning. Because if Eli Manning cares about the New York Giants and his legacy,
Nope. I don't think he does.
We're going to find out. If he cares, he's going to put him in a position to succeed.
As much as they've done to
we've seen it enough where guys, it's gone both ways. You see with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. You saw it with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Brett Favre did not give a shit about what Aaron Rodgers was going to do, to the point where he held out and then walked away when they made Aaron Rodgers the starter. But you see with a guy like Peyton Manning, who actually did care and put guys in position to succeed.
Jim Sorgi.
Jim Sorgi made a bunch of money by just holding a clipboard for a long time.
He did.
He's a Michigan guy. Went to high school with one of my college teammates.
What as much as the Giants, their organization has done to coddle Eli Manning and make sure he doesn't get butthurt, I don't think Eli gives two damns about Daniel Jones and trying to help him develop.
Well, he should, and
that's
unfortunate.
I could be wrong.
That's unfortunate because Eli should know better. He's from a family that's done this, and his brother did it the right way.
And his daddy forced a trade from San Diego to New York.
His daddy put him in this position, but he's been around this league his entire life, and he should know enough.
I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. I want to be wrong.
You should help the guy. I mean, the league is cutthroat, and I will readily admit that guys are fighting for jobs every year. But Eli should know it's time to walk away. You know,
he doesn't.
You're 39 years old and you suck. Like, it's time to walk away. Help your successor, leave a legacy, and cheer him on the entire way, and you can say, hey, look at what I helped to build.
It's still gross to think he has as many Super Bowl rings as his brother.
I know. It's disgusting. And they're both going to be in the Hall of Fame. You know what I hope? I hope that they go in at the same time. It's not going to happen, but I would love for them to both go the same time, and he gets overshadowed by his older brother just one more time. I know. Just one more time be overshadowed by your older brother.
No, I just have Eli introduce Peyton.
Well, they can introduce each other because they're both going to the Hall of Fame. So
all right, so
whatever.
So yeah, we've had some surprises here in the first round as we talked about the Raiders, the Giants go ahead and taking Daniel Jones at 6. Although Adam did have that correctly predicted in his mock draft. He did have that.
But we didn't know he was going to be there at 17, which he would have been.
Yes.
So I was wrong, but I was right.
Right. Okay, so were either one of those moves for you the biggest surprise of round 1? Because for me, it's not.
No, for me, it's not either. Besides Cleveland Farrell, which is just stupid. The biggest surprise for me, and we're actually going to talk, unbeknownst to us, we're going to talk about two halves of the same trade. Biggest surprise to me was Denver moving back out of number 10. But I understand why they did it, but Denver leaving number 10. Denver wanted a tight end for Joe Flacco, which we've shown. Joe Flacco has shown time and time again. Putting a decent tight end near him helps. You look at the tight ends he had in Baltimore, particularly like Dennis Pitta and the stuff that he did with him. Having a guy in the middle of the field for Joe Flacco, because he's not elite, hashtag not elite Joe Flacco.
Ding, ding.
You have to have something in the middle of the field that's going to give you an opportunity to be successful. And they needed a good tight end. Well, TJ Hawkinson was off the board. He went to Detroit at number 8. By the way, Detroit fans, if any of my Michigan friends are listening right now, that's actually a great pick. I know you guys are a little scared because of the Eric Ebron pick from a few years ago.
TJ Hawkinson,
and he's different than Ebron. Now, Ebron proved he can catch the ball when Andrew Luck's throwing it to him, but this is a different pick, and T.J. Hawkinson is a 3-down player, unlike Eric Ebron, who's basically a 1-down player. He's a 3-down player, and that's a great pick for Detroit. I know a lot of you guys are upset about it, but that's actually a really good pick. But anyway, he's off the board, who we thought Denver may have been targeting TJ Hawkinson, and it looks like they were, because they traded out at number 10, dropped down to number 20, and get the other tight end from Iowa. They get Fant from Iowa. By the way, the first time ever that 2 tight ends from the same school have gotten drafted in the first round. Some kind of cool random facts that came out of yesterday. But they moved down 10 spots, pick up a 2 this year and a 3 next year, and get the guy they wanted anyway. I think that's a surprise move at the time, but it worked out great for them. John Elway made a great trade. That's what's surprising. John Elway did something smart.
On paper, anyway, Elway did not screw this up.
No, he didn't screw it up at all.
I had them taking Noah Fant at 10.
But they didn't have to take him at 10. Like we just mentioned, they went back to 20 and got him anyway.
Got a couple
picked up a second and third for it. So it was a really, really good move by Denver. That's why I say it's surprising, because John Elway doesn't make really good moves very often. Yep. This might be the second best pick he's ever made. Well, so we're going to see how it works out for him.
Speaking of moves that aren't made very often, on the other side of that, the Pittsburgh Steelers moving up in general in the draft, which is something they don't normally do.
The last time they did it was for who?
Well, the last time they did it for a defensive guy was 2001, and some bum named Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, that didn't work out well for them at all.
But you don't ever see, like we talked about yesterday with Cincinnati, you rarely ever see Pittsburgh move up at all.
Yeah, they don't move
for
around.
Anybody.
Cincinnati doesn't move around, and typically the Steelers don't move around either. But this one, it's great, and you're going to talk about it, but this one's great for me for 2 reasons. But the main reason is because of who they jumped in front of. I think makes it even more fun.
Well, they moved up to take Devin Bush, the linebacker from Michigan, and I love this pick.
It's a great pick.
Absolutely love this pick for Pittsburgh. You have to think with where they came, they got wind, or at least the smoke screens were put out, whatever the case may be, that Cincinnati was looking hard at Devin Bush at number 11. But we talked about yesterday this Pittsburgh defense getting older and getting slower, and especially since Ryan Shazier got hurt, and
he was your middle linebacker of the future, and he was
a guy, and he was a guy like Devin Bush that was a surefire tackler, but he could fly. Shazier was a 4.3 guy coming out of Ohio State,
sideline to sideline linebacker,
and Devin Bush is a 4.4 guy. And what is the one thing Pittsburgh's been missing from that defense?
Sideline to sideline linebacker,
speed,
and that's what they just got.
That sets up everything for them going forward. He is immediately a starter.
He's their day one middle linebacker. He's going to be their Mike. He's going to be the captain of the defense. He's going to be making all their calls. And like you just mentioned, since Shazier got hurt, they haven't found a guy who can play in the middle.
No.
And they don't have a linebacker who can play sideline to sideline.
No.
They just went and got one.
And their defense has suffered because of it.
And they just went and got one.
Yep.
And the reason that this pick is more fun for me is that who they traded up in front of. They traded up to get in front of the Bengals. And the reason that's important is because guess who else needs a middle linebacker?
The Bengals.
The Bengals do. So they went up and got in front of the Bengals, took the best middle linebacker available, a sideline to sideline guy. They said, you're probably either going to play him twice a year or you're going to have him on the field for you 16 games out of the year. And they would rather have him on the field for him 16 games out of the year. Because I think if he's there at 11, I think the Bengals take him. I really do.
Well, but we talked about as well with the Bengals seemingly not being able to get Devin Bush. They go offensive tackle instead with Jonah Williams at number 11. You really like that
I think it's a great pick. And you look at the skill set and what they need right now, offensive line wise. We mentioned before that this was a spot if Zach Taylor was going to change offensive regimes and go with a quarterback, they could have. And Dwayne Haskins was there. They could have had him if they wanted him. But looks like they're going to stick with Andy Dalton for the time being. And the one thing you need to do for Andy Dalton is protect him, and that's one thing they were terrible at. So you just went out and got a starting left tackle, and you see the praise that he got if you follow Coach Paul Alexander on Twitter, who is my offensive line coach here in Cincinnati line coach for 19-something years. He was here forever. Was the guy who was responsible for Andrew Whitworth. Besides me getting hurt, he was the guy who was responsible for picking Andrew Whitworth. But his praise is that he's the best all-around offensive tackle since he saw Andrew Whitworth play. And that is huge praise from a guy who, by all accounts, is a highly regarded offensive line mind. For those of you who don't follow offensive line like I do, he's a very highly regarded offensive mind, Paul Alexander is. And to heap praise on him to say he's the closest player you've seen to Andrew Whitworth is pretty impressive. And that's something that they've been lacking since they let Andrew Whitworth walk away.
Yeah.
they've been lacking a anchor to that offensive line, and with that pick, they went out and got one. And I think Jonah Williams, they've already mentioned he is the day one starter at left tackle. He's going to come in and start at left tackle. They did pay Bobby Hart a bunch of money, but Bobby Hart's going to have to find a different spot.
Zach Taylor didn't flat out say he's going to be the starting left tackle, but he said, the tape's proven he can be a left tackle, which basically means
he's the starting left tackle.
Yes. A lot of people thought maybe because you already have Cordy Glenn, he starts out at right tackle.
No.
Can maybe eventually move to left. No, I get it.
I think he starts from day one. I think he has to.
Just because you made the trade last year for Cordy Glenn.
Yeah.
That maybe Williams starts at right tackle, and in maybe a year or two you move him over to the left side because your right tackle spot has been so bad over the last 5 years, really.
Yeah, really and truly, they haven't had a good starting front five in five plus years.
2015 was it, but even then you had a glaring weak spot with Andre Smith at right tackle.
You were still playing Andre Smith, who was an awful pick. In the worst 40 of all time. Don't ever, if you weigh over 300 pounds and your body looks like Andre Smith's, don't ever run a 40 with your shirt off. I won't ever do it. So
you didn't?
You shouldn't. Hell no. I didn't even run in a tight shirt. I wore the loose fit shirt.
What did you weigh when you ran it? What were you
at the combine? I was 337.
Okay.
I was fat. I was probably too fat. I was probably too fat at the combine. But
you weren't like DK Metcalf and had 1.9%.
No, not at all. I think mine was.
Did you move the decimal point?
Mine was more in the 18-19% range than it was in the than the 1.9% range. But no, I love this pick out of Cincinnati. I think if Devin Bush was there at 11, they take him because they needed a middle linebacker too, which is where I think they're going to go today.
Yeah.
But I think shoring up your offensive line at 11, I think was great for them. He's the day one starter. You already wasted a bunch of money on Bobby Hart, which was terrible. We joked about it last night in our chat thread about they found the money to pay Bobby Hart, but they couldn't find the money to pay Andrew Whitworth a few years ago. So really interesting with how their offensive line is shaken out, but going out to get him after getting a center in last year's draft, they're really starting to put an offensive line together that's going to protect Andy Dalton and what looks like going to be a different quarterback going forward after in a couple seasons. But
you had another direction as far as picks you really liked.
Okay, the pick I really liked though. Sorry, the pick I really like Atlanta. We're talking about offensive line, and again, this goes back to Indianapolis's theory from last season with what they did to protect Andrew Luck. There's a franchise quarterback down there in Atlanta and Matt Ryan who needs some protection. And what did they do? They went out and got 2 offensive linemen, day one starters for them. They went and got Chris Lindstrom, the offensive guard from Boston College, who, by the way, had the most Boston College draft party I've ever seen. A bunch of white people in polos sitting around on tufted couches sipping martinis and stuff. Yeah, golf claps and hugs all around. But, I think that's a great pick. That kid's a mauler. He's going to be a day one starter for them. And then Caleb McGarry, the offensive tackle from Washington, coming back into the first round to come get the kid at 31. The Rams trade out. They come in and get Caleb McGarry at 31. I think it's a great 2 picks for them in the first round. 2 starting offensive linemen from day one. Probably what's going to look like their right side of their line going to be rookies, right guard and right tackle to start from day one. I think it's a great play for them because you look at where they were 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, and what happened was their offensive line they couldn't protect Matt Ryan because they got offensive weapons. They just couldn't give Matt Ryan the time they needed to be a successful offense last season, and they went out and got 2 guys who are going to do that for him. And I think that's really great, and not just because I'm an offensive lineman. I think the biggest need was filled for them, and the first day they got their biggest need filled, which was awesome.
We love picks. We hate picks. I hated the Cleveland Farrell pick. Who did you hate?
I think everybody hates the Cleveland Farrell pick.
Just because
who doesn't hate the Cleveland Farrell pick?
It's just such a reach. If you really like Cleveland Farrell.
With who you had, we already mentioned this, with the picks you had, that is the biggest reach in the draft. And
you could have
the reach for Daniel Jones is similar. Like, you have another pick where you could have gotten the same player. You could have gotten him at 24. There's no question.
Well, and maybe you could have combined 24 and 27 and moved up into the teens.
If you're really worried about it, move back up. You got 2 picks, move back up. But Yeah, passing on Josh Allen to get a guy like Cleveland Farrell just blew my mind.
Yeah, that's the one I hate. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. At least I'm not, because we've already talked about it at length. We talked about it at length.
The one I hate the most, I like the story. I hate the pick. Titus Howard, the kid from Alabama State. So the Houston Texans, who need offensive line help, they picked the right position. There's no question.
Yeah,
they need offensive
line. That
line.
offensive line was rancid.
63 sacks last season. Deshaun Watson running for his life back there.
How many times he upgraded his life insurance policy?
Yeah, like the fact that he's going to be standing upright to start this season is incredible after getting sacked 63 times last season. They needed offensive line help, no question. And I love the story out of this kid, Titus Howard, but he's a project. And the fact that you picked a project at 23 with the other guys who are on the board, which is what makes this pick more confusing. Caleb McGarry's there, who Atlanta ended up getting at 31. Jawan Taylor, the kid from Florida, who I actually had predicted in my top 10. Now come to find out there's some concerns about his knee, which may be why he's falling, but he's still there on the board. And then Cody Ford out of Oklahoma, who some think is the most physical offensive lineman in the draft. He's still there on the board, and you go out and get a project kid. Now, athletically, this kid is bar none. He's probably one of the best athletes. He played well at the Senior Bowl. He showed a lot, but the kid is still a project. This kid, 5 years ago, when he was in high school, this kid was a quarterback. All right.
He came to Alabama State as a quarterback.
He's a 6'3", I think he was a 6'3", 230-pound kid. Comes in as a quarterback, ends up adding 2 inches. He ends up at 6'5", adds 87 pounds to his frame. He's over 300 pounds now. But he's still, he's a small school kid. And when I say small school, I'm not saying like a MAC kid, because that's where I'm from, and I understand
that. He's FCS.
He's an FCS kid. Now, you look at some of his tape, and I believe they played at Auburn, and he had a pretty decent game against Auburn. But it's still it's a big project for me, for a kid who 5 years ago was literally playing high school quarterback. They mentioned that he remembered his last game of the season, or the last game of his high school career, because he had 16 carries for 160-something yards as a quarterback or something like that. But to me, that is a big stretch, one, to get him at 23, and then also the fact with the other guys that were still on the board. Like, that blew my mind that they would go up and kind of make that reach like that. I feel like, again, this is another one that I feel like he would have been there in the second round. You could have got him at I'm looking at today's picks. They got the 54th and the 55th pick back to back. I feel like he would have been there. I really do. Like, the offensive tackle run started a little late, but obviously, Andre Dillard came off the board right before that, and they needed offensive line. Again, the right position. I just think it's the wrong kid. With the 3 other tackles that were so highly rated, all 3 of them had first-round grades. McGarry, Taylor, and Ford all had first-round grades, and then you go out and get a guy who is a big project. And again, 5 years ago was playing quarterback. It's a head-scratcher to me. Again, right position, I think it's the wrong player. I hope it works out for him, because I like to see the Houston Texans competitive, and I think Deshaun Watson's a hell of a talent down there. But I don't know if this is the guy who's going to protect him, because you just picked this guy to be your starter. And he's going to be a day one starter, and I don't know if it's the right pick. We're going to see.
Let me ask you a couple of questions with this in regards to this. Now, it looks like probably going to be the right tackle for now. Maybe he can move to left. Let me ask you this: you've played both sides of the offensive line in your career. How hard of a position is offensive tackle to play?
It's to me, it's the most difficult position on the offensive line. Now, right tackle is somewhat easier than left tackle, and the way NFL offenses are predicated. Typically,
so let's assume he's slotted at the right tackle spot.
I think he has to be. So typically in the NFL, and this is the way it usually works, the right side of your line is typically your power side of your line. Your left side is more of your finesse side. Meaning, if I'm running a power play, if I'm running a downhill play like an ISO, if I'm running a trap play or something like that, I'm typically going to run that to my right side, and I'm going to run my tosses and my sweeps and stuff to my left side. And this is weird, and you'd think the NFL wouldn't be this simplified, but it really is. And if you watch the NFL games, if you watch where most power plays get run, they typically get run to the right. Most stretch and sweep plays get run to the left, and most of that is because of the athletes that you have on either side. And if you look back to offensive line play. When I was there here with Cincinnati, our left guard was Eric Steinbach. He walked around at 280 pounds. Like, he was dripping wet, 280-pound guy, but he pulled all the time. He was a fantastic puller. Our right side of the line was Bobby Williams and Willie Anderson, who both were well north of 320. Some would say closer to 350 for those guys. And if you want to run a power play, I'm running behind 700 pounds of human rather than 500 pounds of human on the other side. I'm running behind 700 pounds of human. So, he's going to be, they're projecting him to be the power guy. Like, they're going to run their power stuff behind this kid. I don't know. He was a right tackle in college. That's what makes it even more confusing.
So with that, then it's a very difficult position to play. How big of a learning curve is it for him to come into college as a quarterback and make the move to tackle, and now expected to do it? So he's transitioned from one position to another within a 4-year time frame, and now has to do it on the professional level. How big of a learning curve is this for him? I would assume also he's still on the learning curve.
Yeah, he's still on the learning curve. He's still probably learning the intricacies and techniques and stuff like that. Now, academically, you have to assume that he's kind of an intelligent kid. Like, to play quarterback, you can't be dumb. You have to be a pretty smart kid, even at the high school level. Our quarterback is the smartest kid on our team when it comes to football. The kid recognizes football. That's who you have to be. Like, you can't just be a dumb quarterback. Mm-hmm. But the techniques and all the stuff that go along with it are so much different. Now, our skill guys, we were doing some work yesterday with our kids, and I took the offensive line, and skill guys come over and they start joking around, and we're just doing basic stuff, and they look like fools trying to do it because those skill kids have no clue what it is. Same thing I got to imagine for a quarterback, going and putting his hand in the dirt and trying to do, whether it's kick slides or whether it's doing, zone steps and power steps and all that stuff. Totally different techniques. Like, there's nothing that correlates from being a quarterback to being a tackle. There really isn't, just as far as technique-wise. But, I think, again, I've mentioned before, I think the biggest difference in the NFL is the speed at which you have to learn the game, and I would imagine that that's not going to be the issue for him. It's just going to be whether or not physically he's going to be able to handle the transition because, again, FCS kid, he played against FCS-level talent. Not to say there's not talented kids at FCS, but he's not seeing them every week. In the NFL, there's no FCS-level talent every week in the NFL. You're playing a dude every week in the NFL. Now, he's going to get thrown in the fire because guess who lines up on the other side of the ball there in Houston in practice every day?
Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt.
And J.J. Watt, two really, really good defensive guys. So he's going to get thrown in the fire right away, and we're going to see how he stands up. But, that could work to his advantage because he's going to have two really good players who seem to be team guys who are going to teach them everything they know about how to stop themselves so he can do it on the field for them against another team. But, yeah, Again, I never want kids to fail. I want this kid to succeed. It seems like it's a big lot of pressure. For me. It's a lot of pressure for their number one pick, being a small school guy. We'll see. And we saw, I'll use the example of Eric Fisher. We saw it with Eric Fisher being the number one pick overall, coming out of Central Michigan, a small school kid. And he had a lot of pressure on him for a long time. He just finally made his first Pro Bowl this last season.
Took him a few years.
Took him 5 years and out of the number one pick. And a lot of people, you want to see Pro Bowls a lot sooner than 5 years down the road.
Yep.
It took him some time, and there's a lot of pressure. I have friends that live in Kansas City. My brother-in-law lives in Kansas City. So there's been a lot of pressure on him, a lot of talk in the media about was he the right pick at number one overall, being a small school kid? Was he ready for the big stage? Mm-hmm. And this is the same kind of pressure that this kid's going to have down there in Houston. If he struggles, there's going to be a lot of questions asked about why did you go with a small school kid who couldn't handle the big stage? Again, I don't want him to fail. I always want these kids to succeed because I know how hard it is to do this job. I want to see the kid succeed. I hope he does. It seems like a stretch for that pick.
Well, and especially given how bad their offensive line was, he has to work out.
He has to work out
because otherwise Watson may not survive.
Yeah, I mean 63 sacks. You can't get worse than 63. You can, but if you get worse than 63, you're going to have a hard time doing anything offensively if you get more sacks than 63. With Deshaun Watson, who's a franchise quarterback who can make plays for you, and we've seen in the past when they were the playoff team, the guy can make plays. You just got to protect him. This guy is going to have to come in and do that.
If you do worse than 63 this year, you're probably going to be in the market for a new head coach.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you're going to contend for a playoff spot if he's getting sacked more than that.
No.
Okay, so let's move on and let's start to look ahead now to today's second and third round, and then tomorrow's rounds 4 through 7. Team in your mind that has still a lot of work to do.
Well, you mentioned it yesterday, and I said there wasn't much pressure on him, but you said it yesterday, and it turns out you were right. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, they got a lot of work to do still. They had 2 picks in the first round, and they got a ton of work left because guess what they didn't do? They didn't help Aaron Rodgers one bit.
Nope.
They went out and got 2 defensive players, and I don't think they're bad picks. They went out and got Rashawn Gary, and then they came back in to get Darnell Savage, 2 defensive players who are going to be day one starters for them. But we saw how Aaron Rodgers was disgruntled with the way the offense was going with Mike McCarthy. Ends up costing Mike McCarthy his job. Aaron Rodgers is your franchise quarterback, and you need some weapons around him, and they didn't get any. They took 2 first-round draft picks and didn't help Aaron Rodgers one bit. Now they do have picks today in the second round. Like they're picking pretty early today. They're picking at 44 today. So they only got to wait 12 picks to get an offensive weapon. The good news for them is the way it's shaped up. There's a lot of skill guys left. And
they got their pick.
They got pick. They're going to have guys left. Only 3 skill guys selected in the first round. There's a lot of offensive weapons that are going to be available. There are 12 picks into the second round. But I'm surprised that especially when they traded back in. I thought when they traded back in, they were looking at maybe getting the running back Josh Jacobs, or maybe they were coming back in to get the receiver, the Brown kid, Marquise Brown. I thought maybe they were coming back in to get him. But it really kind of confusing for a team that needs offensive weapons to surround a franchise quarterback. And really and truly, that's why you have a new head coach, is because you didn't have an offense that was productive because Aaron Rodgers was a little disgruntled.
You have
really confusing that you didn't get an offensive weapon in the first round.
Devontae Adams and what else?
Yeah,
because Jimmy Graham is.
Jimmy Graham is what, 37 years old? He's older than me, right?
He's almost done.
He's not that old. But.
You let Randall Cobb walk to Dallas. Granted, his production had kind of dropped off over the last couple of years, but what do you have?
Not much.
Like I
said, again, the skill guys are there. Like you look at the receivers are all there on the board. There's only 2 receivers came off the board. Only 1 running back came off the board. So there's weapons that are going to be there. We mentioned Montgomery yesterday. DK Metcalf is still there. Like there's still offensive weapons available. But the fact that they didn't get one in the first round is a little confusing. They still need offensive line help. I mean, they could still use a right tackle. Now, the left tackle's not bad. They could still use a right tackle. There was a lot of positions they could have gone. They could use tight end help. Like there's other spots that needed help on their offense that
there'll be tight ends available too.
There's going to be tight ends available too. But little confusing that they went 2 defense when they need help on their offense. But I think that they got the most work to do. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, the Rams didn't take a first-round pick. The Colts didn't take a first-round pick. It's going to be interesting to see where those guys go. Obviously,
well, the Colts now have 3 2s.
The Colts have 3 2s, and they've shown, and particularly the last 2 drafts, that they can go out and make really good talent decisions and draft guys to put them in position. It'll be interesting to see what the Colts do with their picks, because only making Andrew Luck better is only going to make them better. So giving Andrew Luck more weapons and starting to shore up more parts on their defense too. Some DB help on their defense wouldn't hurt. They found their franchise middle linebacker last year. Great pick by them. Should have been the defensive MVP of the league, or could have been the defensive MVP of the league, or defensive rookie of the year. But it's going to be interesting to see where those 2 teams go. Obviously, the Rams coming off the Super Bowl. What do they do with their draft? They haven't had a pick yet, so where do they go with their draft? Obviously, do they start to get offensive weapons? They look for a guy to replace Andrew Whitworth
offensive line
when he's gone. Roger Saffold left in free agency, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with their draft. But yeah, Green Bay still, for having 2 picks in the first round, really kind of head scratchers, not getting an offensive weapon out of one of those 2,
and to trade up late in the first round.
To trade back in to get a safety.
To move up in
who
like 8 or 9 spots.
A lot of people kind of question, him as
some guys had him as Darnell Savage as a 3rd round grade.
Yeah,
he has terrific speed. He's a little undersized at 5'10".
Little undersized, but he's got terrific speed. He ran, I believe, 4.31 guy.
Yeah.
He scored a lot of touchdowns relative for a DB. I think he scored 6 touchdowns in college. So he's got take it to the house speed. He blocked a punt for a touchdown and stuff. But, played at Maryland with not a lot of talent around him, so maybe that had a little bit to do with why some people graded him differently based on his film versus, his numbers and so on. But yeah, that one is, to me, it looked like a little bit of a reach. I didn't really have him on my radar as far as somebody they'd be picking up there.
Not to trade up to get.
Yeah, to trade up to get. But, that's the guy they wanted, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But, yeah, a little perplexing out of Green Bay on day one.
Yeah, Green Bay was a surprise. I think going forward now, Miami has to do some work, especially on the offensive side. You got to take a quarterback because right now all you have down there is Fitzmagic.
Hey, let's not dog our boy Fitzmagic just yet.
He's on his 9th team.
I know. Which, by the way, when he throws his first touchdown, he'll be the only quarterback in the NFL to throw a touchdown for 9 different teams ever.
Exactly.
Hey, let's not dog my boy Fitzmagic. He's got a majestical beard. He's an awesome person.
No,
you need to be happy for him.
No,
he's not your quarterback of the future. You need to go out and get a quarterback of the future.
And the thing is, I understand why they went the way they did, because Christian Wilkins, I think, fell into their lap at 13.
Yeah, who, by the way, almost killed the commissioner when he came out.
The jump in the air, and I'm sure Goodell's probably going to suspend for violation of the personal conduct policy.
Oh, by the way, one of the best dressed too. As much as we dogged a couple, Kyler Murray and Devin Bush.
Oh, he had the Power Ranger stuff on the inside of the
Power
jacket.
Ranger jacket. I thought that was awesome. And a cool story with him why he wears the number 42 because his grandfather got killed.
He graduated from Clemson in 2.5 years.
Yeah, smart kid. Again, a lot of good feel-good stories out of day one too. A lot of cool stories.
But he was a situation like Josh Allen going to Jacksonville where
he was there. You had to take him.
You have no choice. You have no choice.
Too much talent there. I
get it. But Ryan Tannehill's gone. Ryan Tannehill is now in Tennessee and likely going to back up Marcus Mariota. Tennessee's got a decision coming up on Mariota, too. I think he's in the final year of his deal.
Yeah, they're going to be looking for a quarterback, too, I think.
Yeah, watch it for Justin Herbert there. Maybe another Oregon guy to replace him in Tennessee next year. But Miami has work to do offensively. Like you said, you got to have somebody ready. Even if you want to use Fitzmagic as a stopgap, you're going to have to. You got to get somebody, and whether it's you have to go get somebody in the second round here. They pick at 48, so they're midway point of the second round.
Again, still some decent quarterback. Drew Lock's still out there.
I don't think he's going to last that long. I don't think he
makes it till 48, but it's going to be interesting to see where he goes because the teams who need a starter already got one. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes.
You may have to reach for a guy like Will Grier at that point, Ryan Finley from NC State, Jarrett Stidham from Auburn. Some guy you may have to reach a little bit on. Maybe it was a guy, maybe he's more of a third-round grade that you may have to take at 48 because you have to have something for the future. You got a new head coach in Brian Flores. You have to have something to sell to the fans to say, we have our guy for the future.
Yeah, and we know Miami's a terrible market, especially when they suck. They don't fill that stadium when they suck.
No, I mean,
so if you don't
they don't watch anything down there because it's freaking South Beach. Watch a Miami Heat game and see how often people don't show up till the third quarter of that, even when LeBron was there.
You got to wait till the sun goes down, but
right.
But
you have to have something there, and God love Fitzmagic. He's had a hell of a run. He's made himself a lot of money. He's set for life, but
contrary to Eli Manning, he will be a guy who will mentor whoever they bring in. He will
because
be the
he
guy.
knows.
Yeah, he understands where he is in the league, and he's his own agent. He's made some really good decisions the last couple of years. Obviously going to Tampa Bay to be the starter, and now going to Miami, who needs a starter. He's made really good business decisions for himself and put himself in a position to be on the field, which is ultimately the goal in the NFL. You want to be on the field no matter how it happens. But he's also a guy who understands the league and understands that he's going to be a mentor to whoever they pick. And to be honest with you, I don't know that there's a more cerebral mind that you can learn from. I mean, you look, this guy's a Harvard-educated player.
He's one of the better guys you can for a rookie to learn from.
And he's been around the NFL for 14 years.
Well, he's 14 years. He's on his 8th or 9th team. There's not a playbook that he has not seen.
Yeah, there's not a system he hasn't been in. He's been in nine different teams. He's been in every different kind of system.
So he's
had marginal success with everybody. He hasn't had terrible seasons.
He's going to maybe outside of his brief stint in Houston. He's been a serviceable guy. Yeah. He's one of the best guys to learn from, and this is where for Miami's case, the fact that he is so well traveled that it's going to work out in his favor because there's not a playbook he has not seen and doesn't know and doesn't know every little nook and cranny there is to know offensively because he has literally seen it all.
Yeah, and he's seen all different kinds of defenses because he's been in the AFC, he's been in the NFC, he's been in almost every different division in the NFL. So he's seen the defense of the AFC North, he's seen the AFC East, he's seen all these different defenses.
But you have to get somebody.
You have to get somebody to be the guy after Fitzmagic.
And
Fitzmagic he's 37 years old. Like even if he has a stellar season, it becomes guys can play till they're 40, absolutely. But how long are you going to roll with 40-year-old quarterbacks? It's going to be interesting to see, where they go, if they go quarterback at 48, or if maybe there's not a quarterback they like at 48 and they wait again till the third round. Maybe there's a guy they're in love with that's a small school guy that's out there. I read something. There's a really pretty solid FCS kid out there that a lot of people like. I should have wrote his name down. But he's like a third or fourth round grade guy.
Kid from Central Connecticut, I believe.
Might be something like that.
Yeah.
But maybe Miami's got their eye on him and they're going to roll with Fitzmagic for a full 16 games this season and hope that kid's ready. Or maybe they got Fitzmagic for 2 years and they're looking at Trevor Lawrence in 2 years. Like there's a short game and a long game about it. We're going to see where Miami sits real quick. Like you mentioned, they need a quarterback down there. We're going to see where they go for sure.
Here, the guys we talked about yesterday still on the board as far as underrated guys to take a look at. And the first one you're looking at here, Andy Isabella, wide receiver from UMass. Green Bay, you need a receiver. Yep. If he's there at 44, you may want to pull the trigger on it. It may be a little earlier than maybe you would like to get him because Green Bay doesn't have another pick till 75 in round 3. But he is a guy that you could theoretically use to give Aaron Rodgers some help, a slot receiver because he's smaller at 5'11".
But that's what they use in Green Bay. Green Bay likes slot receivers.
He's a Randall Cobb replacement.
Yep, they don't have down the field guys, or they haven't had in a long time.
Well, you got Devontae Adams, but this is a guy who is a younger, faster Randall Cobb.
Yep, possession receiver, get you first downs, make explosive plays every once in a while. Yep. But that's what they need. That's a good pick for them.
You want a starting running back? How about David Montgomery, your guy?
He's still out there. I think he's the first running back gone today. It wouldn't surprise me if Indianapolis takes him, San Francisco could take him, Seattle could take him. There's a lot of guys who could take him. He may be gone in the first 5 picks of the second round today. If for some reason he falls. I don't think he makes it past Denver.
At 41.
Yeah, I don't think he makes it past Denver at 41. Maybe he makes it if he's there at 44. I think Green Bay has to take him, just because he's the best player available at that point. But yeah, I think he's gone in the first 5 picks today in the second round.
And then a guy to look out for probably tomorrow.
Yeah, probably third, maybe fourth round.
Probably tomorrow.
This
starting
kid
the fourth
again,
round.
a possession receiver. Like if you want, maybe this is a kid like Green Bay's looking for. Maybe they wait that long and they just fill out receivers and they wait for a guy like David Stills. It's. This is where, to me, because I'm a later round guy, this is where it gets kind of fun because you find kids that you've never heard of.
You're biased.
I am biased, but you find kids you never heard of, and you find kids that end up being super talented guys. You look at a guy like Antonio Brown, or the greatest example of all time, Tom Brady, who you knew about, but Tom Brady falls till late in the rounds, and now he's the greatest of all time. So. But Antonio Brown coming out, he's a 6th round guy coming out. Who's Antonio Brown? He's from where? Central Michigan. Best receiver in the NFL. You know what I mean? So, this is where it gets kind of fun because, these guys, obviously, all of the guys got drafted yesterday, millionaires. Most of the guys get drafted today are instant millionaires. But the later round guys and where you find talent and the hidden talent, guys, this is where guys who maybe didn't even play football before get drafted in these next rounds. It's happened before. Guys who were basketball players. You look at a guy like Antonio Gates, never played football in his life, and he's possibly one of the greatest tight ends of all time.
Second greatest tight end of all time.
Yeah, this is where the guys like this get found, and it's a lot of fun. And we won't know the true story until the season starts, and we won't know really where their careers go until they're done with them. But this is a lot of fun, and this is this stuff. It's just, if you're a football geek, it's just fun to see these kind of stuff. There's going to be a couple of Central Michigan DBs get picked today. Or not today, but this weekend, which would be fun for those guys. We got a couple DBs that are going to be like probably 4th through 6th round guys in the NFL and stuff. So it's fun. It's all fun to see these kids' dreams come true. I've experienced it. It's awesome. It's an awesome experience. get an opportunity to keep playing football. It's something that you love, and you get an opportunity to keep playing football and get paid more than you got paid in college to do it.
What were your let's go back to when you were selected in the 5th round back in 2005, when you got the call and saw the 513 area code pop up on.
Which, by the way, I had no idea what 513 area code was. I had no clue.
Your agent didn't tell you?
No, it didn't, because we didn't think I was going to Cincinnati at all. Like I had so the way it worked back then, it was Saturday and Sunday, 1st through 3rd, 4th through 7th. The super outside chance that I was going to get drafted if there was a huge run on tackles. So I was the 12th tackle picked overall. If there was a huge run on tackles, there was an outside chance I'd get picked in the 3rd round. So I went out to dinner with some friends, and I kept an eye on the TV and kept my phone on. And I didn't really think it was going to happen, but you never know. Tackles weren't coming off the board. Like there wasn't a bunch of tackles that got picked. I think we only had 2 first-round tackles. I think it was only like 6 tackles through the first 3 rounds. So it was not a big tackle draft for me. But so the second day of the draft, you start getting phone calls early in the day to check to make sure your phone is the right number. They want to make sure you have the right number for you to call.
You have teams calling saying this is your number?
Basically, like, hey, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. We really liked your stuff. We're gonna, look to get you X round or whatever. Dallas. So I get a bunch of phone calls on Sunday morning. I knew I was getting drafted, but I get a bunch of phone calls Sunday morning.
Anybody lie to you?
Going into it, Dallas. I don't know if Dallas lied to me. Dallas said that they were gonna. I really thought I was going to either Dallas or Green Bay because of the combine. Those were the 2 teams who showed the most interest in me. Had the best workout for them, answered, sat down in one-on-one interviews with them and everything. And I thought I was going to either Dallas or Green Bay. And then I get a call from both of them on Sunday morning. I'm like, all right, let's go, And Dallas had a bunch of picks. They had, I think between the 4th and 6th round, 4, 5, and 6, I think they had something like 10 picks. And so I don't remember how they had so many picks, but I'm like, but anyway, before it gets to me, they had like 3 or 4 picks before I got picked, and I'm like, it's gonna be Dallas, it's gonna be Dallas, and I kept missing it. And my teammate Eric Guychick got drafted here to Cincinnati. Called him, big, exciting day for him. I called him, and he, I was a little disgruntled, not gonna lie, because I thought I was a better football player, but a little disgruntled. But anyway, I was, tell him I'm happy for him, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to Cincinnati. They loved him. Paul Alexander ran our pro day, so I kind of figured that was a good fit for him. But anyway, I think I talked to like 10 or 11 teams Sunday morning, and I think some of them, again, I'm thinking Dallas or Green Bay. Jacksonville showed a lot of interest. I thought it might be them. I heard from them Sunday morning. The team I didn't hear from, and I didn't think there was any chance I was going with Cincinnati. I had no clue. Because I knew their tackle roster. Because again, Paul came and did our pro day. All the stuff, everything he did focused on Guychick. He did all the one-on-one stuff with Guychick. He did all the question. We did chalk talk on the board in the room. All the chalk talk stuff was for Guychick.
Did you say he was a big dummy about that?
I knew that. Yeah, he was not very smart at it.
As far as the chalk
talk, he wasn't very good with it. He just struggled. It's a high pressure situation. You're sitting one-on-one in an NFL in a room with an NFL coach.
I'm nervous,
and he's asking you coach questions directly. Me?
Yeah,
not at all. But really? I was a smart football player, so and I didn't think that there was any.
But just the pressure of the situation didn't get you.
Bother. It doesn't bother me. Like, all right. Pressure stuff like that didn't bother me. Like we had individual workouts and teams would come in, and I just went out and had fun. Like
so anyway, you said you Cincinnati was not even on your radar.
Not even on my radar. I knew their tackle roster because after Paul came to our thing, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like an offensive line coach was here. I went and looked at the roster, and they had like 4 tackles on the roster already. That obviously the two Willie Anderson and Levi were both 1st-round draft picks. I'm like, they're not going anywhere. Why do they need me? Mm-hmm. They had a guy, Scott Kruster, who, by the way, shout out to Scott if you're listening. He just got the offensive line job over here at Mount St. Joe here in town. But I just didn't suspect that they would even be calling me. And then all of a sudden I get a call from a 513 area code. I think it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. So the draft started at like 11. I think it was 2:30 in the afternoon, and I get a phone call, and there's a 513 area code, and I was like, what the heck? Now, first of all, my friends kept messing with me. They kept blocking their number and then calling me. and my buddy Jeff Twyman and Mike Lumberg, "Hey, Adam, this is the Detroit Lions. We just wanted to say welcome to the team." And I'm like,
Okay,
oh,
I was
guys.
going to say, were you laughing or were you pissed?
I was pissed because I was like, I could be missing the actual call, but I had to answer them because I didn't know any better. But anyway, so I get a 513 call, and the first thing I hear is, "We got both of you." And I was like, "What? What do you mean you got both?" Like didn't know who it was.
Not a hello. This is Paul Alexander.
Nothing.
Or this
Didn't
is Marvin
recognize
Lewis.
the voice. So Paul was the one who called, and he says, "We got both of you." And I was like, "Oh, hey, coach." And he's like, "Adam, we got you and Guychick. You're both coming to Cincinnati." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I didn't even it took me so long to register because 513, I had no idea. And then, they go through the spiel and they put Marvin on the phone, and Marvin's like, "Hey, Adam, welcome to the team. We loved your tape. We're excited for you to come down, whatever.
Marvin Lewis's typical excitement.
Yeah, get on the phone with Mike Brown, and Mike tells me, "You're so glad to pick you, whatever." And then they're like, "Okay, we're going to pass you over to the media." And then, you do a phone interview real quick over the media, and Jeff Hobson runs that, and all the guys are sitting in a room or whatever. But yeah, no clue it was coming. And then, I hang up the phone, and I think I mentioned this before. I had a T-shirt because of the combine. They gave, you go around, the teams hand out gear and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a Cincinnati Bengals T-shirt actually in my stuff with me, and so I ended up throwing that on. And so there's a couple pictures of me in a Cincinnati Bengals T-shirt, and then from there I just started drinking. Like the once it was done, it's like, well, time to party now. Like we had a bunch of people. We were over at my mom's house. Had a bunch of people over at my mom's house. My wife, girlfriend at the time, my wife was there. They were actually supposed to have a softball game. They ended up getting canceled that day. So just kind of just turned into a party from there, because then everything was taken care of from there. Like I didn't have to worry about anything anymore. I didn't have to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. I was good then, so then just time to party. Let's go.
Okay, so now let's give folks an idea of kind of what happens from there. Obviously, the partying's done with, and we're talking about because a later round pick. Obviously the first round guys, they
fly you down.
They're almost instantly on a plane. You're in there. What was it like for you that year? Because the first round pick that year, 2005,
Dave Pollock.
Okay, yep. So your experience starting this draft process after your pick compared to his.
So he as soon as he got drafted, he hopped on a plane. He was down here. He and Odell actually came, and I believe, I don't know if Chris Henry made it or not, because those were the first the first day draft picks come, and they do the media in person. So Dave hops on a plane, Odell hops on a plane. They come down to Cincinnati or up to Cincinnati from Georgia. They do the full media thing for sitting in front of everybody on Sunday while they're doing the rest of the draft. Those guys are appearing in front of the media. We get drafted on Sunday. Rookie mini camp started the next weekend, so I believe it was Wednesday. We actually came down on Wednesday. They flew us down on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, mini camp, and then sent us back home, because you can do mini camp, but then you can't start team activities until your college graduates. And none of the schools had graduated at the time. Now, if you had already graduated from school, then you were fine. I obviously had not. So we come down to minicamp, then we have to go back home because we can't be working out until our school graduates, which was funny because we had a guy, Tab Perry from UCLA. Yep. UCLA doesn't graduate until June. For whatever reason, they were on quarters or some shit, so they had a later graduation date, so he missed like the whole first month of the offseason because his school hadn't graduated. And that rule may have changed by now, but at the time, you couldn't work out besides rookie minicamp until your school had graduated. So anyway, we go down there for the 4-day mini camp, had a good time. There's a bunch of rookie free agents, and I learned this after the fact because I went and did some of these after my time with Cincinnati was up. I went down to Tampa Bay, did the same thing. I went to Baltimore, did the same thing. I went to a purely rookie mini camp in Tampa Bay, which is only for practice squad guys and guys who hadn't been on active rosters, which would include me, and then a bunch of college free agents, guys who had never been in the NFL, who were basically on a tryout period. So that was the way it was at our rookie camp. We had the guys who got drafted. For us, there were 7 draft picks. Dave Pollock didn't do anything because he didn't have to, because he was Dave Pollock. Everybody else was there. They had the rookie free agents that they had already signed, like a guy named Ben Wilkerson, who was the Remington Award winner out of LSU that year. Tore his patella tendon because Nick Saban had him in the end of the game against Vanderbilt when they were blowing him out. He tears his patella tendon in garbage time against Vanderbilt. Cost the kid his career. who he actually, I think he coaches for the Giants now. Matter of fact, I think he's the offensive assistant for the Giants. But anyway, do that whole process. That's my first experience with the NFL. I didn't know any different, so I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. The Bengals have an awesome facility. Turns out it's crap. But at the time it was crap. Now they've done a lot to improve it. We were eating Aramark cafeteria food and stuff back then. It wasn't even like we were eating fancy. But you know,
did you get your own water bottle?
No, we don't get our own water bottles.
Did you have to go?
We got rationed. For those of you who don't know,
we've heard stories about Mike Brown's.
Gatorade's obviously the sponsor of the NFL, so every NFL locker room has giant Gatorade coolers full of Gatorade and water. And
we've heard stories of Mike Brown's.
We got rationed. You could only take one water and one Gatorade with you. That's it. One water, one Gatorade. That was it.
How long is that supposed to last you?
Until the next day. So we got done after practice.
One water, one
so
Gatorade
you can come in and you can drink water or whatever while you're there. But when you leave, so like for us as rookies, when we go back to the hotel,
back to the hotel,
you get one water and one Gatorade. That's what you take. That was it. Yeah. Like the story of that TJ Hushmanzada told, for those of you who haven't heard it, told about
water fountains
and the jock straps in a pile in the middle of the floor.
That was Ashley Ambrose that said that from the 90s. But Hushmanzada was about the water fountain.
Yeah, but it's still fairly accurate. Like you didn't. No, I've been on.
Tell me, did you get a clean jock?
I didn't wear jocks, but you could. We had all clean stuff, but you had to sign everything out. You didn't get anything. You didn't just walk up and say, "Hey, can I have a T-shirt?" If you got a T-shirt, it got credited. The way Mike Brown's system worked,
they bill you for
everything. You didn't get billed for it, but they wanted to make sure that guys weren't taking too much gear. So everything got checked out, basically. So like if I need a new pair of socks, I go up to the equipment guy, hey, can I get a new pair of socks? He scans the computer, puts my name in, scans the socks, and then hands them to me. So you make sure that the guys aren't taking too much gear. The story about Mike Brown saving money is it's not off. Like
he's doing inventory on socks.
Yeah, everything.
He has a POS system on socks.
Everything. Headbands, T-shirts, everything. You get one of each.
And that's supposed to last you until they break?
Yeah, until you got holes in them. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I didn't ever throw anything away because I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get any more.
Okay,
like,
so
I kept all my training camp T-shirts, all that stuff, because I wasn't sure if I was getting more T-shirts.
So let's go with that here, and we're wrapping up here. We'll be wrapping up here in just a few months.
Long episode today. We're talking football though, folks.
And so as you get going through, your time with the Bengals, obviously you're gonna see and you're gonna talk to guys on other teams, and then as you said, you went into camps later on with Tampa Bay and Baltimore. What was your reaction then when you see other camps and you see I'm assuming there were other teams that were basically like, go take a T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I left. I went to Kansas City. I was literally on the ground in Kansas City for about 4 hours, and I flew in.
Because you had to work out there.
I flew in, hop in a van, drive me to the facility. They got a whole locker laid out for me. Now, granted, this is the off season, so there's not a lot of guys around, just guys doing rehab, and then some guys that live in town that work out there during the off season. But I got a whole locker set up for me. I got shoes, cleats, I got full set of gear, everything.
So what was your reaction when you saw that?
So I work out, and
is it like
they were like, go ahead, take it, take it all. I'm like, all right, I don't need shoes and cleats and stuff, but I took T-shirt and
so
shorts.
what was your reaction then when you saw it? Because, I mean, I have to imagine at some point you're sitting there thinking, well, Cincinnati, did you ever think, like, with Cincinnati, this is how, I guess it's how it is?
I just thought that's how it was. I really did. I mean, I went to Tampa Bay for the full mini camp, and I took everything with me in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. It was nice stuff. Now, and also the quality of stuff was different. Like,
what do you mean?
Like
you're getting like Nike and Reebok T-shirts there as opposed to Hanes here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, like in Cincinnati we would get like the quality of our shorts, like it just like.
Did you get Umbros here compared to like Reebok?
You know the difference between like good shorts and bad. Like it's all Reebok, but there's different levels of the gear, I mean, there's cotton and dry fit, and then there's there's like the thin nice athletic shorts, and then there's like the heavy like knit shorts. So like we got heavy knit shorts instead of like the thin, it's just the way it was, man. Like we got tube socks instead of fitted socks, it was crazy, yeah.
Did the socks you get have a little picture of Michael Jordan on the packaging?
No. They were just plain socks. We got plain white socks.
Oh, cheaper than that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We just got plain white socks.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Again, I wouldn't trade the experience. And the Bengals, and again, this is 14 years ago when I got drafted. 16 years since, or 12 years since I last stepped foot in that facility as a player. Far away, much better now. Now they have a full cafeteria. We used to eat Aramark food. Now they have a full cafeteria with chefs that make food on site. They have omelet bar and
I'm sure they had breakfast. Marvin has to be thanked for that.
100%. Like Marvin had 100% to do changing those facilities. We used to work out in a gym about as big as our high school weight room. Now they've got the full giant gym with an indoor turf area and squat racks for days and everything.
But not an indoor practice area.
Not an indoor practice area.
Can't have that.
Did I mention this before? I did find out one of the reasons that they don't have an indoor practice area where their current practice fields are, because all city utilities run underneath that field, so they cannot dig a foundation. It would cost too much to use all the city utilities. Valid. This is not Mike Brown. This is the city. The city can't move all those because for those of you who aren't familiar with Cincinnati and the way it's laid out, their stadium and their practice facility sits right next to one of the major bridges. And so a lot of city utilities run underneath their practice facility area. And so they couldn't dig a foundation to build without moving all of those city utilities.
The same city of Cincinnati who says that the soccer team should be landlords to the people who are trying to buy out to build a soccer
stupidest
stadium.
Idea ever. By the way, FC Cincinnati, when you fail, I'm sorry. Because it's not your fault. It's the city of Cincinnati's fault. 1, they picked a terrible spot for your field. 2, they're going to charge you too much for tickets. And 3, Cincinnati fans suck. When you suck, Cincinnati fans will stop coming, and you're going to fail. Sorry. I want to see you succeed. Again, I don't want to see people fail. I want to see FC Cincinnati succeed. I think it's cool. I think it's the best team we got in town. By the way, the Cyclones,
Kelly Cup
to
playoffs.
the Kelly Cup playoffs.
Yeah,
by the way,
they lost last night.
They lost last night. They tied it up with a minute 30 left to go to overtime. But
well, then you also have you also have for those of you who don't know here, Great American Ballpark, home of the Cincinnati Reds. Outside of the stadium, they have a big saying that says "rounding third and heading for home." That was always a sign off of Joe Nuxall, the youngest player ever to pitch in the major leagues at 15, longtime radio broadcaster alongside Marty Brennaman.
Yep.
Marty Brennaman's retiring after this season. His longtime catchphrase is, "And this one belongs to the Reds." Yep. Well, on the outside of the stadium, it says, one side of it says, "Rounding third, heading for home. Let's honor Joe Nuxall." The other side was originally going to say, "This one belongs to the Reds," but then the county commissioners threw a piss fit because the Reds actually leased the lot in the stadium from the city. The city owns the stadium, and the county owns the stadium, and the county did not want the public to think that the Reds own the stadium. And that's why the outside of the stadium does not say "this one belongs to the Reds," because county commissioners are jerks. Everyone knows what the saying means. No one literally thinks it means that the Reds own the stadium.
Yeah.
But we can't have that. So it just says Cincinnati Reds on it.
I love the city of Cincinnati, and this is going to be our home for the foreseeable future, and the tri-state area.
It can be very infuriating.
Some stuff about the city just drives me nuts, including the way they treat their sports teams, the fickleness of fans here in Cincinnati, and the homers. That just choose the best team at the time to be a fan of. I'm not, for those of you who don't know, I'm not a fan of any team in particular, save the Central Michigan Chippewas. I cheer for mostly upsets, and I like watching sports. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't, I'm not a particular fan of the Reds. Now, if I go to the Reds game, I want to see the Reds win because that's where I live. But I don't care if the Reds win the World Series. I think it's kind of funny when they fail. Blowing the series to the Giants, I thought that was funny. I'm not a particular fan of the Bengals. I'm a fan of the players, and I like people that are associated with the Bengals, but I'm not a particular fan. The only items I own that say Bengals on them are ones that I got from the Bengals for free. But I just watch sports. But the thing that bothers me is all these people who are live and die by the teams that surround them, to the point where they will own every bit of gear, say we when we're successful, but the second they suck, they disown them. Like, I'm never watching another Bengals game again. You know how many fans I have that say they're never going to watch another Bengals game again?
I know one. I know of one.
I know multiple.
I know of one.
And guess what? If they go 12-4 this year, guess who's going to be the first people back on that bandwagon? All those homers who said they were never going to watch another
I know of
Bengals
one.
game.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
100%. The guy who uses "we" on all of his Facebook posts to talk about anything Cincinnati or Ohio State or whatever team is good at the time.
All right, so let's close out here. And since you're already fired up, I'll just ask you this: as we go ahead, rounds 2 through 7, the next couple of days, would you use a draft pick on a kicker?
No, ever, never. Now, we mentioned this last night. The Raiders. He said, "Oh, the Raiders are going to come back in and pick a punter here." To be fair, one of the best draft picks the Raiders ever had was a first-round kicker.
Guy. And Sebastian Janikowski.
Sebastian Janikowski, one of their best draft picks ever, the all-time leading point scorer in Raiders history, 10th overall in the NFL. But, no, you don't need to. Kickers are a dime a dozen, because what happens when you draft a kicker? They end up sucking, and you gave them a signing bonus, and you end up winning the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any because there's no active kicking going on right now, but there's always kickers out there.
Now, there may be an award if somebody drafts a kicker next week, folks, so you're going to want to be tuned in.
We might give a Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week if a kicker does get drafted in the next 2 days, particularly if one gets drafted today.
Well,
guess what? Your team's getting nominated.
Keep an eye on that, folks, and we will talk about that next week here on Fumblegate on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Fumblegate. Follow us on the Twitter. Follow the show at Fumblegate. Follow me at Jason Griefer.
At Fumblegate Fatty.
Follow us on there. We appreciate you joining us here on YouTube to wrap up the first round, look ahead to the rest of the draft. Enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. A lot of kids' lives are going to be changed. And hopefully, for our sake, we see a kicker drafted next week or the next 2 days, and we'll talk about it here next week. And he can get pissed and he can give out the award.
No, don't do it. Never pick a kicker. Never trust a kicker. Don't do it.
We'll see you next week.